Hello everyone and welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I recently had the pleasure of riding the new Kove 450 Rally street legal version in the deserts of Southern California. So here's the lowdown on the new Kove 450 Rally street legal. This is a Chinese-made 450cc rally-style off-road motorcycle that costs just over $9,000 that is street legal in all 50 states. It has around 40 horsepower, weighs around 370 pounds or 168 kilograms, with all 8 gallons or 30 liters of fuel on board in the separate front and rear fuel tanks. It has a towering 38-inch or 965 millimeter seat height and a massive 12-inch or 300 millimeters of suspension travel. This bike is primarily designed for riding over very rough terrain for very long distances at very high speed. That's what a rally bike is all about, and that's what the Kove 450 is designed to do. So let's go for a ride on the bike out in a desert, and then we'll come back here to discuss some of the pros and cons that I found with the bike, discuss some finer details, and end with some final thoughts.
All right, first ride on a Kove 450, fully 50 state street legal Kove 450 Rally. All right, on the highway, surprisingly smooth. My first impressions, I've never ridden one of these before. There's less vibration than I thought there would be. And it actually feels pretty comfortable at 55, 60, 65. $70 miles an hour at 6,000 RPM. It's actually not that bad. You know what the motor kind of reminds me of? It kind of feels like if you ride a Honda 450 RL, the stock Honda 450, it kind of reminds me of that. Like maybe around 35, 40 horsepower, somewhere in that vicinity. Shifting feels a little notchy. The shifting doesn't feel great, to be honest, but that's okay. What I'm liking a lot is the dashboard. It reminds me of like a KTM, like the older KTM dashboard from the 790, but it's not the same. The graphics are different. I like that you get all these instruments, the trip computers, tachometers, everything, gear indicator, with, you know, on basically a dual sport bike. So the Kove is super interesting to me because it's like, is it a big dual sport with 8 gallons of fuel, or is it like a light adventure bike? It's kind of both, depending on how you want to look at it. Handling feels fine for what it is. The brakes feel soft. The brakes don't feel that good, but I think for off-road they're going to be fine because you want a softer brake when you're off-road. The wind deflection is actually pretty good. It keeps the wind off my torso, and I get pretty clean wind on my helmet with the small windshield. I'm pretty surprised with that. I don't have a lot of wind buffeting. I'm wearing an Arai XD5 helmet right now for today's ride. So what I did was, you can go in the computer here and you can turn the ABS off. You can turn the ABS off just on the back, or you can turn the ABS off to the front and the back. I really appreciate that. That's a really nice thing that they thought of doing that, so that's great. And then on the dash, you get all sorts of cool readouts like fuel economy, trip computers, voltage, average speed, and you can kind of go through here and set different things. So pretty impressed with that. So that was 0 to 70 there. That's really not bad. You know, yeah, I would say kind of feels like a Honda 450 to me. Obviously this bike is heavier, because it's got all this bodywork and all this fuel and all these, the windshield and all this stuff. So I'm out in the Borrego Desert State Park at the Moto Adventure Rally, and so all the trails here are super sandy. One thing that I've been looking for is because I've heard that Kove had some fueling issues, but you know what? It actually feels really smooth. It doesn't feel like it's jerky on off. Without taking it on single track, we're not going to really know about if it has any stalling issues or anything, but I haven't heard that. But the thing is, this 50 state model street legal is brand new. It just came out, so I haven't heard many reports on it yet. But I'm not noticing anything strange. The way this bike feels is it feels like I'm riding like a 400 dual sport, like a DRZ. You know what it feels like is like a DRZ with a windshield and better instruments and a big gas tank. That's kind of what it feels like. The suspension, we need to test that still. I mean, it's got plenty of power to slide around the back tire. I've only got 30 minutes to do this whole video, so I'm a little bit crunched for time. Let's try to test the suspension here. There's a camper over there. He probably doesn't want to be disturbed. Whoop, there's a stall. But I was in third gear, so... Okay. Ooh, very soft and very sandy. The ergonomics feel pretty good. I mean, the bars and the foot pegs and everything feel pretty good. Yeah, it would be a lot more fun if it had more power. The suspension, from what I can tell on this limited ride, feels pretty decent. How close do we want to get to these cactus at 50 miles an hour, you know? You! Brake test. Yeah, the shifting is kind of rough. Alright, let's do kind of a walk around of the bike. So we've got our license plate, lighting back here, LED lights. Let me try to turn on the lighting for you guys here. It's even got hazard lights. Love to see that. You can see the LED lights, LED tail light. And then for our front lighting, we've got twin LED high beams, which have this cool kind of look. LED front turn signals. Let's go ahead and turn that off real quick. And I'm walking around the bike. So a few basic things about it. You know, it's a 450 engine. I'll put the weight here in the text because I don't remember it right offhand. Doing this very off the cuff. The seat's very tall. They come in two different heights. If you get the lower height, you're going to get less suspension travel. I'll put the seat heights here in the text as we talk through this. The exhaust is pretty quiet, so they had to certify this for 50 state street legality in the United States, which means that compared to the off-road Kove 450, the non-plated bike, this has less power, different ECU, different airbox, different exhaust. You know, it has to be to meet the certifications for sound and emissions, all those sorts of things. Okay, so here's the airbox on the 50 state version. You can see it's got a paper like cartridge style filter in there and a closed airbox to make it quiet. And then on the unrestricted version, this is not street legal. It's got this open airbox with this big old foam filter. So they were telling me that the noise, this doesn't pass noise test, so that's why they had to do that. So can see the rear brake back here, the rear tire and wheel. So it's an 18-inch, it's a 140/80/18. I believe that's the same size. It's like a KTM 690. You've got a 90/90 21-inch front tire, and it comes with these, I believe these are, what brand of tires are these? CST, I think they're Chinese tires. They don't feel that great to me, but they're probably acceptable for doing some light adventure riding. Most people are probably going to change those out, at least the bikes I've seen. So you have a rear fuel tank, and you have 2 tanks in the front. You have a total fuel capacity of around 8 gallons or 30 liters, which is just phenomenal. I mean, that's one of the key things about this. The MSRP on this bike, I believe it's around $9,000 or $10,000 in the US, but I will confirm that by putting it here in the text of the video. You do have adjustable suspension. I believe the suspension, oh, here, right here, KYB. So you've got KYB fully adjustable suspension. I believe the travel is 250 or 270, but I'll put that here in the text. Again, it depends on what height you get. If you get the low version, you're going to get less travel. Nice, really like the rally style foot pegs. Those feel great. Wouldn't need to upgrade those. It's got kind of this carbon fiber skid plate. That's pretty cool. With pretty good coverage. I don't know if you need to upgrade that. I don't know enough about these bikes, but looks like it would give you some protection right off the bat. Radiators up under here. Overall, I think it's really unique and really cool. The windshield has, it's funny, they have a mix of bolts and these quick release fasteners here for the windshield. The air filter is easily accessible under the seat, I believe is where that is. You can see the radiator fan there. The 2 fuel tanks up front. I think this is a bike that's going to appeal to people who live and ride in the places that I do here in the American West, where we have huge expanses of riding areas that can go for hundreds of miles between fuel stops, and you're doing some pretty sandy technical off-road riding, which we have. It's kind of made for the kind of riding we do out here in the western US if you're an adventure rider and you want to do some off-road stuff. I'm going to have to confirm if these are factory. It's got some sort of dampened handlebar system here. You can see these dampers in here. I don't know if that's factory. I'll confirm with them when I get back, but that's pretty cool. Haven't seen that ever come stock on a bike before. Ha! You! Surf that sand, baby! See, if you're willing to rev the motor out all the way to 10,000, you get some pretty good power out of it. But I'm sure there's going to be tuning opportunities, with companies like Moto and others that are going to do all that. But of course, that could potentially affect your legal status or, compliance. So be careful of that. I mean, you're not going to want to travel across the country on this bike. It's a high maintenance, dirt bike engine. It's not going to be great for traveling at 70, 80 miles an hour on the freeway, but you can do it for short amounts of time to connect, backcountry discovery routes or big dual sport rides or adventure rides where you need to do that highway stuff. Really got to get this bike back. So I've considered buying one of these because it's kind of up my alley, but it would kind of be in a weird place between my other bikes. Although I could definitely see using this for a lot of the rides I do. You know what? As a first effort for Kove to make the street legal 450, I mean, I'm really impressed by it. It doesn't seem to have any major issues. Like, it doesn't have terrible fueling. The engine doesn't suck, like the suspension doesn't seem to suck, the components look decent enough. I mean, you get off-brand stuff like the brakes or like Tasico or something, but I mean, the thing is, nobody has a bike like this. No other manufacturer makes anything close to this. I mean, not even close. You have to buy a dual sport bike and then do all the modifications and stuff to it, and with this bike you get all that. You get all this up front in that price, which is really, really good. So I think this is a win-win for us as adventure riders to have another choice of a bike that is completely unique to the other offerings from other adventure dual sport bikes. Whether you look at this as an ADV or a dual sport, this thing is pretty phenomenal for the price point and for the equipment and the functionality that you're getting.
All right, so for me, here are the pros on the Kove 450, and forgive me for reading off some notes on my phone. Value for money is incredible. If you looked at this, if you tried to take like maybe a KTM 690 Enduro R, which admittedly has much more horsepower at over 70 horsepower, but if you took that bike, which by the way doesn't have as good a suspension, not nearly as good as the one on the Kove, if you took a KTM 690, it's like $12,000, $13,000 or so, brand new, put on a rally tower, bigger fuel tanks, all the upgrades you would have to do to get it to sort of the chassis performance of the Kove, you would spend probably $15,000 to $18,000, and it still wouldn't be as good in certain situations. So the value for $9,000 is incredible on the Kove. Now, fuel range, obviously with 8 gallons or 30 liters of fuel, the fuel range is incredible. It's designed for that rally style riding. The ergonomics for standing were some of the, maybe the best I've ever experienced on a dual sport style motorcycle. It's felt so natural to stand up and go fast in the desert. And it makes sense because I guess that's what this bike was designed for. I really like the damped bar mounts that really help reduce the vibration. Also, I believe the bike is ready for a Scott stabilizer that just bolts right on. That's fantastic. The TFT dash, this is the only dual sport style motorcycle I can remember that has such a detailed dashboard with all that information. I really, really like that. Great suspension. The suspension is quite good. You've got full adjustments there, super long travel. You can get away with crazy stuff on this bike. Also, as a pro, this bike is now street legal, meaning for people like me here in California, I can go down to my dealer, buy one of these, ride it away on the freeway, fully street legal. I don't have to worry about trying to go out of state and get a license plate and do all that kind of stuff. It's street legal from the factory. Also, another thing that was a pro for me on the street legal version, I got to ride both the street legal and the off-road version. The street legal is much quieter, and I like that. I do not like loud bikes. I find it very annoying and very tiring to ride. Plus, I think it's bad it makes us look bad as riders. It gets our riding areas closed. People don't like to hear the loud noise of motorcycles. I really like the quieter exhaust and intake on that street legal version. What are the downsides? Well, we don't know about the reliability. There are a lot of questions about that. The dealer network is incredibly limited, right? Of course. It's also very, very tall. They do have the lower version, which drops it significantly lower, but you do lose suspension travel there. Also, I did get to spend some more time with the bike later, and I did find the more I tested it that the low speed maneuvering, lower speed riding was a little bit jerky on the throttle, a little bit uneven. It's not a great bike for single track or lower speed technical off-roading. It's more of that open desert style of bike. Maintenance on the Kove, so it holds around 1.8 liters of oil. I read the owner's manual for the bike. It says to change it around, it depends, like when you're breaking it in is more often, but you might be able to go between 2,000 to 4,000 kilometers or around 1,500 to 2,000 miles, somewhere in there between oil changes, depending on how dusty it is where you're riding and how hard you're riding the bike. The air filter, we've shown that it's easy to get to under the seat. Valve checks, I think, are around every 5,000 miles or around 8,000 or 9,000 kilometers. The owners have reported some kind of frustration checking the oil level, whereas there's a sight glass, but maybe it doesn't work, and then you have to like put a plastic, what am I trying to say, a zip tie into like the oil tank and like check it. I don't know, it seemed kind of sketchy to me, and having to remove panels to check the oil. So I wasn't so sure about that. But again, I would need to investigate that more further. Final thoughts on the Kove 450 Rally. Now I'm going to be reviewing I'm also releasing a video in the next couple days on the Kove 800. I also did a similar test on the 800, which may be of interest to more people out there, so stay tuned for that. My final thoughts on the 450 are, I'm incredibly impressed by the performance, capability, the features, the uniqueness of what this bike offers for the price. And you have to consider there's nothing else like this on sale in the United States, nothing. We don't get the AJP, the PR7. We don't get that as a street legal bike, so that's off the table. I mean, for $9 grand to get a rally bike, oh my gosh, this is crazy. and it really makes me want to go pick one up. I mean, I don't know. Let me know if you'd like to see this featured long-term on the channel, if that's of interest to you, or maybe if the 800 is more interesting, let me know about that down in the comments below. But I was super impressed by this 450, and man, I don't know, pretty crazy what they've been able to do for $9,000 and to get it to meet street legality in all 50 states in the US. That's fantastic. So thank you so much for watching. Ride safe. I'll see you out there.